Now there are ransomwares going around asking people to pay to get back their data, entire facilities that has to be shut down and rebooted, and they go for days without being operative, elections in countries that are tampered with. We are witnessing recently, in the last years, plenty of cyber attacks on different targets. Might be cities, might be normal people, VIPs, attempts to destabilize countries, and so on and so forth. It is surprisingly, it's a little bit hard to pinpoint if the attacks are increasing or not. Recent reports say that the attacks are fairly stable, but they are becoming more and more expensive for people and companies. While in the past there would have been a virus that maybe just ruined a little bit of computer, now there are ransomwares going around asking people to pay to get back their data, entire facilities that has to be shut down and rebooted, and they go for days without being operative, elections in countries that are tampered with. So I would say that the amount of attacks are fairly stable. They look fairly stable recently, but they are becoming definitely more costly for the people that are targeted. Behind these attacks, there's different actors, and it depends on the kind of attack, the target, and what they're looking for. We can make some examples. With ransomware attacks, it is mostly criminals, single criminals or small groups that are looking for getting some revenue, getting money out of people. So these ransomwares just spread around randomly, and if you happen to be infected, you are asked to pay a ransom, indeed, in order to get back your data. And given that the goal is to get money, they are not really targeted specifically to a person. It's just a very large net trying to catch as many people as possible in this. But with other examples, if we think about attempts to destabilize governments or elections, for sure, most of the times those are fueled, let's say, by states. It's not a given that they're always directly states doing that, but they are for sure, it's states that are paying maybe some groups in order to deliver such attacks. Given that the goal there is not to earn money, but to specifically achieve a goal, it is definitely people with very in-depth skills that know what they're doing, and that they are, as I said, trying to achieve a specific goal. And accordingly, the techniques also change because the goal is different. So we cannot, it's a little bit hard to pinpoint who is doing what. But we have a fair understanding, depending on the goal and depending on the kind of attack, the reasons, and therefore the kind of people that are capable of doing that. I would say that a large part, the most common kind of attack recently, I would say, is ransomware. It got really, really popular, and by sheer numbers, given that, as I was saying before, this kind of attack tries to target as many people as possible and just replicates the malware, ransomware replicates itself from one machine to the other, then it makes so that these are the most popular attacks, because they're not really technically hard to strike, and they're not expensive consequently, and they can make so that the attackers earn a good sum of money. the attackers can break in different ways. Ransomwares, as I was making the example, they automatically, they usually infect a machine through an attachment in an email, a USB key that has been infected, something like that, and it simply runs in the computer, tries to encrypt as many files as possible, and demands that the victim pays a ransom within 24 hours to get the code to unlock their data, else the data is just wiped. And given the goal, which is getting money from the people, that is a very effective way of striking that attack. But if we are talking about attacks that try to target maybe high-level, high-profile people like VIPs, politicians, and so on, a ransomware, it doesn't cut the goal. So what happens is that hackers use advanced persistent threats, kind of attacks, and they try to get themselves in the devices of the target, in their phones, in their machines, trying to stay as hidden as possible in order to gather potentially critical information and then eventually blackmail them and influence their decisions. These kind of attacks require really a high level skill, and there are some zero-day vulnerabilities that are found, and finding these so-called zero-day vulnerabilities, it's really hard. They can be bought on the black market, but we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for one single vulnerability. So these kind of attacks, they're extremely expensive. They will never be used to try to get information out of a normal person device, because it would be the risk of someone then finding out that there is a zero-day vulnerability would be too high, and the amount of money that is being invested in that vulnerability is too high to risk it. So I would also say that normal people don't really have to worry about those kind of attacks, because they are really costly, either time-wise or money-wise to strike, and they're not going to risk wasting $200,000 on me or you.